Bartenders of Reddit, what was the weirdest/craziest thing you have overheard while making someone's drink? The first restaurant/bar I worked in, I was only serving, but I frequently was in the section right next to the bar. One day I was busy serving a large group, but the restaurant was mostly empty and a guy behind me at the bar said, "You want to pet my parrot?" My initial reaction was the same as if a stranger had just come up behind me and touched my shoulders, but when I turned around, it really was a guy with a parrot on his shoulder. The parrot's name was Bobby, and yes, both me and the bartender pet him. Surprisingly heartwarming. Thanks for that. Bobby deserves a cracker for being such a good parrot. I want a parrot now. Parrots are pretty dope, no lie. A lot of work though. I met a retired couple in Sydney that decided to live on their boat and travel. They saved a rainbow lorikeet with a broken wing at sea. Now Charlie lives on the boat with them and can fly and return as he pleases. I had a whole day of tourist stuff planned, but Charlie landed on my shoulder and then I ended up spending the whole day with the couple and Charlie instead. That's sweet. Reminds me of one summer working retail when a dude came in with a parrot on his shoulder. Extremely quiet bird, just shuffled along on the guy's shoulders. The next summer, the same dude with the same parrot came back in. Turned out he was moving house and didn't want to leave the bird in the van with his dogs. Honestly, a fair reason, lol. Aww. Thank you for sharing this. Brought a much-needed smile to my face. Was this in Orlando? Back in '08 we had a guest that frequently sat in our outdoor patio area with his parrot. I learned that he had been asked to leave a couple other bars because his parrot had a foul mouth. He regularly cursed and even called a woman a slut. Florida is a strange place. Nope. Was that a euphemism? Imagine if the parrot was trained to say some racist hit after you pet it though. I'm gonna leave now. Depends on the owner, parrots will copy damn near anything. I want a parrot that just screams "Zuck" now. I'll leave again. You lucky perk. I was a bartender for about 2 weeks, filling in for a relative who owned a bar and went on his honeymoon. I heard a guy talking to a woman about zucking her husband. I called the cops, but these patrons were gone before they showed up. This was before cameras, so I just gave my story and that was it. Not long after, my uncle calls me saying the cops are looking for me. They interview me about the couple. Apparently, the guy was a hitman for hire and the woman was trying to get some insurance money. She got busted. It was actually an episode of Forensic Files back when that was on TV. I remember watching the episode and they said something like the couple was overheard discussing the zooker in a bar. I was kind of upset that they didn't mention me. Lol. I was hoping for, the awesome bartender overheard them, but couldn't really tell us much. He also pointed at the male in the photo lineup and asked, "Is this him?" As if he was unsure. What is zucking dope? Edit 1. I spent half of the day reading the descriptions of every episode that's streaming on Netflix and watching the ones that seemed relevant. I didn't figure it out and I'm sorry, but I just don't know which episode it was. I recorded it on a VHS tape years ago, but don't know where that is either. I'm moving, so if I come across it, I'll edit this and let everyone know which one it was. Edit 2. As I recall, the hitman wasn't a professional by any means. I think the episode said he was just a local junkie who'd pretty much do anything for his next fix. I was tending bar during an extremely busy happy hour. The place was mobbed and super noisy. Suddenly, a guy sitting at the bar stands up and announces, "Ladies and gentlemen of the bar, I represent the Acme Meat Company and we carry a full line of high quality." The entire bar goes silent while he continues to do his sales pitch at full volume. For some reason he decided that this was a great time and place to hustle up some business. My manager sprinted over to him and told him knock it off and that kind of thing wasn't allowed in here. So he sat down and resumed drinking. I had to reread this twice because I couldn't believe the guy didn't drop his pants. Depending on how long I had been sitting at that bar, he probably would have gotten some business from me. Representing a meat company. Really expected him to just whip his pick out, ha ha ha. Was he literally selling meat? Customer speaking to his friend, "Mate, I can't believe you couldn't get it up for her. I mean, I would have just sucked the hick soft and use a shoehorn or something." Me, "That'll be 9 pounds. Thumbing it in. I had a friend who used to say that he would use a cigar as a splint if this happened to him. I have no idea what in the zuck was going on in his head. From a woman to her friend, "I don't know about you but I just can't poop in a pink bathroom." I once had to ask a woman to remove her infant from the bar top. She put them on the floor. I really don't miss bartending. People bringing in kids. I worked at the dirtiest punk rock bar imaginable for a bit years ago. We did some trade in food, mostly vegan stuff. One brunch, this dude comes in with two young kids, and sits down to order brunch. We tried to warn him away, but he was adamant on staying. He complained when Zuck the Pain Away by Peaches came on the jukebox. Like, I'm here with my kids. This is inappropriate. Yes, it is inappropriate. Where do you think you are right now? Mom? Ma'am? You need to put your kid in a high chair. Now, can I offer you a kamikaze? And what'll the kid be drinking? Had a customer change their baby's shit-filled diaper on top of their table, in the middle of the dining room during dinner rush. Yay, they made sure to leave it on top of the table when they left too. We had changing tables in both bathrooms too. The first bar I ever worked in was across the road from a hospital. We frequently were visited by police looking for people who had escaped the mental ward, T2 unit, who I had served, none the wiser. More often than not, we would have people come in with empty coffee cups asking if we would put their loved one's favorite double shot or a half pint in the cup, as the person in hospital would more than likely die in the next day or two and wanted one last drink before they did. Also, one dude literally walked in with a drip still in his arm and pulling the metal thing that the bag goes on. Edit, forgot to add, on my first ever shift working there it was a very quiet morning. Only one old guy with a walking stick and a limp had come in for a pint of mild. I was just re-cleaning all the tables and noticed his glass was empty and he was walking back towards the door to leave. I figure he'll pass the glass to me as he heads out. So I sidestep to the door and open it for him and Terry's a loud crash behind me. I'm thinking, what the F was that? Turn around and can't see anything immediately, so I turn back to the open door I'm still holding to ask the gent if he saw what it was. Turns out in that split second I wasn't looking at the old guy while I opened the door for him. He had lobbed the glass at where I was standing, before I sidestepped to open the door for him. I look out the glass window in the door and see the old fare running down the road holding his cane. The glass was thrown high enough that it smashed on the wall right in front of where my head was. I never opened the door for anyone else after that while I worked there. Man and woman is sitting at the bar. She starts crying and says, I just want us to have something special. The guy looked her dead in the eyes and said, we do have something special, we have sex. We are both married. 10 minutes later they are making out and she's rubbing his pick over his pants. I love slow Wednesdays. But were they married to each other? One of the guys at the bar recognized me, somehow. He said he knew my mother, and dropped her name, somehow. He apparently met her at a BDSM club. Somehow. Your mom, at her BDSM club. So anyway, here are some pictures of my kid, Justy 1. Look at the pictures, slave. It's always weird the first time you meet your dad. Give it time. I feel like, if you meet someone at a BDSM club or similar, then run into their child at some point in the future, the polite thing to do would be to not mention that their parent was in a BDSM club. Whether they were a regular or there by mistake, probably best to shelter the child from imagining their parents in that situation. I knew a guy that was an amazing bartender. He's get random BS drink names all the time and he'd make them perfectly. Can I get a sexy mosquito? Sure, what color? Pink. I can do pink. Combines random pit, here you go. It's good. Yeah, I know. Just like last time. It was always hilarious, asking what color is a nice touch. Former bartender here. Best advice I ever received for crazy drink requests was make it strong, make it red. Odds are they have no idea what the drink is either, and even if the color is completely wrong, few people are going to complain about a strong, tasty cocktail. I always thought it was funny to order something fairly well known. Was tending bar at my local pub. Loads of old boys used to come in and get properly rezzled. One day, I am polishing glasses and they'd been day drinking and it was around 7 p.m. I hear this almighty crash and turn around. One of them has fallen off their bar stoolie. Total silence, then one guy just loudly declares, "Didn't spill a drop." The whole pub erupts with laughter. Guy who fell off still stands up, tips his hat, and went home. This is probably the funniest one in this thread. Did the guy take a bow before leaving? I was sitting in a bar on a snowy night with some friends. One other patron at the bar, sitting in front of a poker machine. All of the sudden, dude falls off his stool for no reason and lands flat on his face on the floor with a huge crash. Bartender just looked up and said, "Robbie, if you do that again I'll have to cut you off," and goes back to cleaning. His toe was in my bus. This was actually after I had clocked out and sat down at the other side of the bar for my shifty. An older couple I had served earlier had come back. Bar was right next to a theater, so we'd usually serve the same customers twice on show nights, and got dinner and were talking about what they'd ordered. She says she got the shrimp dish, and that apparently didn't sit well with her husband as he just started unloading on her in a way that had my coworker and I just shocked. Ordering the Cameron's El Diablo was apparently enough for him to start griping about taking care of their granddaughter because his wife's daughter was hooked on meth, and unable to do so herself. Long story short, she says, "You know what, why don't you walk back to the Airbnb and I'm going to drive home." He left, she paid, and told us this was their first night out in about a year and she had been thinking of divorcing him and that conversation made her mind up. Watched a marriage dissolve over dinner pretty much. Edit, good God, I just woke up and this one popped off. Thanks to everyone for sharing their own experiences as well as the rewards. Luckily they were an older couple, like late 50s early 60s, so the children were also adults, but I too would be way more zucked up if my parents never split. Love you guys. That happened to me one time. Couple had been quietly arguing all night. Husband looks at wife and says, "You know what? I don't want to be married to you anymore." And he got up and left. She came back in a couple nights later and left a rather large tip to apologize for all the awkwardness. She felt the need to tell me that he had indeed left her and she was thrilled. She became a regular after that.